is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Cheryl Janis. Where are you at in California? Are you in San Fran?
Yeah, I'm 1 hour north of San Francisco in a little town called Sebastopol. It's beautiful here.
And thanks for coming on my show. Your brother Richard is a dentist and a townie.
Yes.
And you've been in the dental space with Cheryl Janis Designs for almost 15 years, designing healing environments for purpose-driven dentists and healthcare solo entrepreneurs who desire a highly profitable, patient-attracting, and referral-generating business. She is also the author of 2 books, The Color Cure, How to Transform Your Healthcare Office, Clinic, or Treatment Room into an Oasis by Choosing the Perfect Paint, and The Waiting Room Cure, The Healthcare Practitioner's Guide to Turning Waiting Rooms into Highly Profitable, Patient-Attracting, Referral-Generating Dynamos. Cheryl, and let's push those out on our social media right now. So we'll sell her some books right now. Cheryl is the principal of Cheryl Janis Designs, a wellness design studio in the San Francisco Bay Area dedicated to helping doctors and healthcare professionals achieve the very best healing environments possible. Unlike conventional interior designers, Cheryl uses an integrated, holistic, and evidence-based approach to design, evaluating the patient experience from the moment they walk through the door until the time they leave, and every step in between. And we're always talking in dentistry about the new patient experience, about how important it is that first impression is, you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Exactly.
First impressions are set in lead. And what do you think goes into the environment to make people feel that they can trust the doctor? He's not going to hurt them. She's nice. She's going to listen. How does this all work?
Well, first, I just want to say I am thrilled to be here. I am just so excited to be on your show, Howard. So thank you for that. And thank you for that great question. So there's a lot that goes into it. And when you design with the patient in mind, meaning you appeal to their senses, you help them feel calmer, more relaxed, you appeal to their biology and their psychology, you start to build a business that's super profitable. So I just want to kind of back up for a minute and just kind of share kind of how I got into this work and kind of what I started to see in dentist offices and also medical offices, in these spaces that I was designing. I want to share what I started to see after I designed these spaces. So when I was a kid, I got into every accident imaginable. And so it's an interesting story. I was at a piñata party and, I was behind the bat and I landed in the ER. When I was 8 years old, I fell down the stairs and broke my 2 front teeth, and I landed in an emergency dentist office, and I was, totally scared of the dentist who was mean at that time. And I was in Mexico, and I got bit by a dog, and I didn't get rabies miraculously. So I had these sort of several car accidents and several experiences when I was young, even car accidents. And then when I was 17, I had the kind of like mother load of car accidents, and I was driving home from a birthday party with my boyfriend at the time, who became a dentist, funny enough. And I leaned over to kiss him, and he crashed us into a row of parked cars. And I went through the front windshield, and my front tooth fell out. And it was funny because I became unconscious, but the policewoman picked up my front tooth and gave it to the ER ambulance driver, and so on and so forth. And so I have a lot of experience as being a patient. That's my point.
Oh, you got to say his name. This is Dentistry Uncensored. He still might be practicing. He might be watching the show.
What?
Are you going to out him?
Who? My ex-boyfriend?
Your ex-boyfriend who was a dentist.
Should I?
Absolutely. He'll love it.
Okay. He will. I don't know about that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think his name is Dr. Leone. Dr. Randall Leone. There you go.
Randall Leone.
I think he practices in California somewhere, but I'm not sure.
And how do you spell Leone?
Leoni, maybe?
Leoni?
Yes.
So did you get to kiss him before the crash, or was
I did kiss him, yes.
Was the kiss so good it was worth going through the windshield?
But it might have been. I think so. Quite a kiss. And it was my birthday, so it was my birthday kiss.
The first girl I ever kissed in my life is now a nun. So the joke is,
no.
Yeah, she's a Catholic nun. Oh my gosh. She was in the convent with my sister, Jean Marie. She's an Immaculate Heart of Mary nun in Wichita, Kansas. Marilyn O'Halloran was last one.
Uh-huh.
Jordan O'Halloran.
All
Jordan
right.
O'Halloran. So the joke is always in our family that my kiss was so bad and it was so horrible that after she kissed me, she said, "Never again. I'm going to join the nunnery." And she's been an amazing teacher and nun for 40 years. But anyway, but continue.
So there were lots of many accidents, just a plethora, a rich history of accidents, car accidents and such. And so what happened about 8 years ago, coincidentally, I was in another car accident after it was on my way back from helping a dental office redesign their space. So I got in another car accident, and this time my whole back was out and I had to take off about 6 to 8 months of work. But I was in and out of this natural medicine clinic. And so, of course, they hired me to redesign their entire facility. And I happened to be right there following, because I was in, twice a week. So I'd constantly be asking them. And it turned out to be a very wonderful case study. So what I saw happening was that as I redesigned each space, so each treatment room within the facility, the waiting room, the bathroom, the staff room, that the business started to triple in both income and in onboarding new patients. And there was about a 75% increase in referral business. And so I started to see that from then on forward, moving forward, I started to see that regardless of if I designed a dental office, if I designed a healthcare facility, a mental health facility, a psychiatric office, private practice, acupuncturists, chiropractors, and so on and so forth, I started to see that when I implemented this certain kind of design, which is through design psychology and some feng shui and evidence-based design. So I'm really so excited to be here today to share what I've learned over the past 14, almost 15 years of designing, healthcare spaces and dental offices included. So I wanted to just jump right in and kind of talk about especially new dentists, because I know that you care a lot about the new dentists, right? And young dentists. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
With the 250,000 dentists on Dental Town, we got the dental students, the young, the
Okay.
middle, the old.
Okay. So first, I just want to say that, give, a quick factoid, which is that 35% of the United States, consumers here, of the population, spend their money on wellness services outside of the traditional healthcare insurance. And so that number is growing. And as baby boomers move into retirement, and even millennials are influencing this greatly, they are becoming more pickier about the experience when they're in the dentist office or any medical space for that matter, or any wellness space for that matter. So here are some tips. I put together some tips today that can help the new dentist or even the old dentist. Maybe you're taking over a practice that's, the design is from the 1970s and it has wallpaper on it and it's just kind of tired and sad, and you're having problems onboarding new patients and you're just not feeling it in the space. So that's the purpose of sharing these tips with you today. So I'll just jump right in, and just stop me, Howard, if you have any questions, of course.
No, this is amazing.
So the first thing I want you to think about is how to humanize your waiting room. So I think that there's this sort of idea among dentists that you have to have a waiting room that's spa-like and it's going to cost you, $30,000 to $50,000 in new furniture and in professional interior design fees, and it has to look magazine worthy. This is an absolute myth. This is wrong. What you need to do instead is simply to create a space that feels nurturing and safe to your patients who come in, so that at every step, while they're moving through your practice and while they're moving through the experience from the waiting room to the operatory to the checkout and out, that everything that they see is positive and uplifting. So the first really important thing to do is to humanize your waiting room with your hobbies. Now, it's really important that you stand out from the crowd. With dental offices, on every corner in a lot of cities in the United States, you really need to set yourself apart. Not be like the crowd, but actually stand out from the crowd. Be a lighthouse. So For example, this is a wonderful example. One of my young dentist clients, Dr. Adam Deesberg in McMinnville, shared his love of the Japanese art of bonsai trees. So he had this hobby at home and he loves the bonsai trees. So he started placing them in his waiting room, in his dental office. And that created questions among patients who started asking, what's this? Oh my God, I love this. Besides the therapeutic quality that we'll get into later of plants, this created curiosity, plain and simple, super easy. So when patients then went into the chair, Dr. Deesberg then started talking about, answering questions about this hobby that he had in his waiting room. And then he took it further and he started rotating his bonsai plants out so that patients would look forward to coming in to see what new plants he had on display. And he took that even further in social media by talking about it in social media, and even further by talking about this in his newsletter. So he's gone from generic dentist to, he's the dentist who has these, bonsai trees in his waiting room. Oh, he becomes known in the community. He re-emphasizes that by bringing in his community, bringing in his patients to the story. And that is the first way I want to say, regardless of if you have, $1 or, $100,000 to redecorate your space, humanize your waiting room with your hobbies. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to just think about what your hobbies are. Maybe it's nature photography, maybe it's bird watching, maybe it's going on safaris in Africa, maybe you have a love of history, maybe you're a science fiction fan. Whatever it is, bring it into the waiting room of your practice. So that's my first tip. And I just love this. So when I was on Dentalpreneur with Mark Costas, one of the things he told me that he and his team do is once a month they walk through the waiting room and they pretend like they're the patients. And so they go through the actual process and they look at what can be improved. So this is one thing you can do. Once you bring in your hobbies, you can, go through the process and see how it feels and get your staff on board because staff loves this. So get your team involved and become a work family. This is how you build your reputation in the community and this is how you stand out. The second tip I want to give you is freaking paint your walls and ceiling a soothing color. So, Howard, I like to talk about the example of McDonald's versus Starbucks. So we all know that McDonald's uses reds and yellows, and there's no coincidence there. The retailers or the researchers behind that chose those colors for a specific reason. They make you hungry and they make you want to move fast. So
red and yellow makes you hungry and want to move fast?
Want to move fast. So they stimulate your nervous system, they stimulate hunger. So you want to avoid red and yellows in your dental practice. Really, really avoid those. So even the burgundies, because they're just stimulating. So one thing I love about dentists is that they have this unique opportunity to create such a contrast between, there's so much fear around going to the dentist, so they have this opportunity to create this totally opposite experience. And so the results I found are much bigger. They're much more dramatic than, let's say, another, an acupuncturist clinic or a massage therapy practice, for example. So on the other hand, when you go into a place like Starbucks or Peet's Coffee, they've chosen greens and browns and earth tones. And they may have some yellows, but they're more of like that. They've got those undertones like a good, wine flavor does, of like very earthy. Why? So that you can sit and drink coffee and tea and chat or be on your computer and drink more coffee and buy more of their product. It's very strategic. So my point is, choose colors that are soothing. So there are different colors that you can choose. And I talk about this in one of my books, The Color Cure, where I give about 23 of my top favorite colors. And so for your waiting room, think in the blues and the greens. So blue is a really calming color. It's the color that reflects trust, just like your shirt, Howard, is a blue. So that if you were to give a speech or a talk, blue is a color of trust. So you want to strategically paint your walls so that, you mentioned first impressions and how important they are. There's never a second chance to make a first impression. So when your patient walks into the clinic, especially a new patient, you want them to see a soothing color opposite on the wall opposite of the door. So greens and blues are really beautiful. I often recommend grays. I talk about grays also in the book. I include it in one of my tier packages. I have like my favorite dozen grays. Grays are really nice in the operatory, especially if you're a cosmetic dentist, because they don't get in the way of seeing, if you're matching shades, if you're not sending something out to a lab. But here's the caveat with gray. You can't just leave gray on the walls by itself because it will feel very dull and tired and sad. You absolutely have to put colorful artwork on top of it. So I have free resources on my website. So if you go there, you can sign up for an email course on color that gets into more of this, because I want to move on with my next tip. My next tip has to do with lighting. So please, for the love of God, please remove those cool white fluorescent tube lights. Another little factoid I found out some years ago is that the entire country of Germany has banned cool fluorescent lights in hospitals across the country because of its harmful effects on the human body and brain. Again, Germany, they're ahead in this. And so we all know it's a problem. We all know it glares, it's unattractive. Some research has shown that it contributes to melanoma and other skin diseases. So either turn it off if you absolutely can't replace it, and, use your task lighting, use all your equipment. I'm not saying not to use all that, but instead layer your lighting in the same way you would layer clothing. So in your waiting room, instead of having just a bright overhead light, which, by the way, research shows that if you have just a single overhead light and it lights up the room entirely and there's no shade or anything, it contributes to depression and it resembles a cloudy day. So let me repeat that. Somebody walks into your waiting room and you have one overhead light that lights up the room evenly, and it feels like a cloudy day and it's sad. So such an easy fix. All you do is replace the light with a beautiful fixture. Or if you can't do that because the landlord won't let you, you keep that light off and you bring in a table lamp for your side table in your waiting room. You bring in a floor lamp, you light up the corners and create that coziness. So I'm going to talk about how to design your waiting room in a minute. But for now, I just want you to know that if you create shadows and coziness in your waiting room, you appeal to the circadian rhythms, healthy circadian rhythms in the body. So what you're doing is you're mimicking the daylight throughout the day. And so layer your lighting. This can be, wall sconces. This can be spotlights. You can light up plants in there. You can go get, a $10 spotlight from Home Depot and create a totally different vibe in your waiting room. So again, you are trying to create an experience that is so positive and so uplifting that appeals to the body and the brain, relaxes people, calms them down, and makes them feel good. So again, layer your lighting and get rid of those cool white fluorescent tube lighting, please. So moving on, this is also really super powerful. Make your waiting room feel like a living room at home. That doesn't mean being unprofessional. That doesn't mean, going out to IKEA and making it look like a dorm room. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about not lining up your chairs like Army cadets in front of their drill sergeant. I'm talking about bringing in furniture that's comfortable and creating the same kind of environment that you would create in a very professional living room. There are many companies, furniture companies out there. We're not The great news is that we're not 20 years ago when there weren't that many options. Now there are just tons of commercial furniture options that are beautiful and soft materials and can be sterilized every day in medical environments that need to be and that feel like home. There's this thing in the brain that when we walk into an environment that feels familiar, the stress response is reduced. It's an automatic thing that happens in your brain. So you do that. Create a space that feels homey. And here's another like wild secret. So balance your squares and your circles shapes. In other words, balance the rectilinear shapes that are in your waiting room with curved shapes in your waiting room. How to do this and why? Do this by introducing round tables. Okay, you have some square chairs, bring in some round side tables. Boom, super easy. There's been so much research that's been done that shows that people feel more comfortable when there's a balance. If you know about any Eastern philosophy, you'll know about the concept of yin and yang, the balance of masculine and feminine. And so, circles and round shapes are more feminine and square ones are more masculine. I've tested this over the years. This totally works. Clients come back to me and they say, oh my God, I replaced the square or rectilinear table in the waiting room with a circular one, and suddenly my patients are noticing it. They're noticing the wall art and they're noticing other things. So again, balance your squares, balance your rectilinear shapes with your curved ones. So this is also a super awesome new technique that is being used. Design element, moving on to the next tip, is how to scent your dental practice with essential oil blends. So this is something that's been used in dental practices before, and it's a field called environmental aromatherapy, and hotels use it. So you sign up with a company like Air Aroma, and you get a system that's attached to your HVAC system. And every month, it's subscription based. You pay like an initial cost to get it installed, and then it's a pretty low subscription. And they come in every month, or they send you in the mail something that you replace that hooks up to your HVAC system, which has these very, very calming essential oils. They don't stink. It's very, very subtle, with essential oil blends like lavender that reduces anxiety. And so it just takes down that like fear-based notch that people are going, oh my God, I have this anticipatory anxiety. I'm in the waiting room. They've been like anticipating going to the dentist for, a week or longer. And they walk in, and it just is another piece of this puzzle that creates such an incredible experience that your patients will then start to remember you. Again, you are starting to revolutionize this experience, and patients will go out and say, I don't know why it felt so good in there, but it just did. This is the kind of feedback I get from my clients.
By the way, I want to just tell my homies that almost everyone's commuting to work for an hour. That's why we do this show for an hour. And her Twitter, I retweet my guest last tweet. She's at Cheryl_Janis, spelled the same way as Janis Joplin, who was from the area you were in. Well, no, I guess she was from Texas. But my favorite quote of Janis Joplin was, freedom is when you have nothing left to lose. And you kind of have a Janis Joplin flavor to you. You're in San Francisco, you're Cheryl, you're at Cheryl_Janis. And I retweeted a couple of tweets. One is I also tweeted you were on another podcast, Dentist Metrics, episode 83, How to Transform Your Dental Practice Through Office Design with Cheryl Janis. And I also retweeted your podcast. How many shows have you done?
64.
Have you uploaded them on Dental Town?
No, I haven't. I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not familiar. I will. I promise I will.
So
I think I need a little tour.
And he didn't tell you how to do that? And your first kiss was a dentist, Dr. Randall Leone, and he didn't tell you? So on on Dental Town, we got 250,000 dentists, and 50,000 have downloaded the app, and you can upload your own podcast. I don't.
Yeah.
Anybody who puts it on iTunes should put it on here, because a lot of times they get in
Okay.
the car. Maybe they're tired of listening to whatever show they're listening to, and now we have 39 people in the dental space posting podcasts, and everyone who's uploaded their podcast on a Dental Town said that their show exploded on iTunes. But look
Oh,
at some of these. Like,
fantastic.
look at this one. This guy has a podcast, How to Open a Dental Office. He has 674,799 views.
Whoa. Okay,
I
I
know.
promise I'll do it after this interview.
Yeah. Upload them all in there, and
Okay, you got it.
then tell your amazing brother Richard that he's going to get a spanking for not telling you.
I
And he should have put in
will.
that. But this is amazing. Keep going. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, not a problem. So, do you have any questions, Howard? Are you feeling any questions, or do you just want me to
Yeah,
continue on?
one of my questions is I'm wondering what percent of the time is the patient upright sitting in a waiting room versus what percent of the time is that patient laying on his back staring up at the ceiling for an hour and a half? One of the biggest jokes among dentists is, it's kind of creepy. Are they looking up your nose? Are they looking at your eyes? Are they looking at, say, someone's sunglasses? So what about, maybe it's because I'm a dentist, but to me it seems like most of the time they're laying on their back. What
Right.
should the ceiling be like?
So let's talk.
And I also want to make one other comment.
Sure.
That as hard as I am on my homies, I think dentists and vets and chiropractors all do 10 times better than physicians. I mean, physicians will take you to some sterile room,
Right.
tell you to take off all your clothes and sit there, and then you literally sit there till you freeze to death. I mean, you may be sitting there 30 minutes. Every physician I go to still has the old window at the front where you
Right.
knock on the glass or ring a deal. They hand you a chart without making eye contact. I mean, my God, if you think dentists could improve, I think physicians have barely even started.
Amen to that.
Yes.
It's really, it's so important. It's so critical. So it's interesting because you have this patient experience and I have, so the patient is already like super anxious. Many of them are when they go to the dentist. They're at least uncomfortable. It's not like their favorite thing to do. So even if they spend a couple minutes in the waiting room, it's still an important couple of minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It's enough time for them to freak out in their mind, catastrophize about what it's going to be like in the chair, get in such a state of frenzy. So it's really important that you do take care of the waiting room. That's really, because it really sets the tone. Of course, I want to revolutionize the operatory.
And hospital waiting rooms. I mean, you almost think you're in an insane asylum.
You do. And it's really freaking scary. And, I think anxiety is just under alcoholism in terms of how many people in this country experience anxiety on some level.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah. So there's some.
I'll drink to anxiety. Why not?
Most men do. Most men who have anxiety do before they get on an airplane. You can find them in the bars. Yeah,
it was one of my earliest misdiagnoses for the first year. I was so young and dumb and naive. About every 10th patient, I'd be sitting there thinking, I smell ketones on your breath. Have you had a physical? You might be having some health problem. When's the last time you had a physical? I can smell ketones on your breath. And then finally at a study club, I saw this dentist, and this older dentist said, dude, you're not smelling ketones. They drink before they come because they're scared. So I'm freaking out every person who's had a couple belts. But yeah. And there was a dentist, you can't make this up. There was a dentist when I got out of school that had a complete wet bar in his waiting room. And he had a very successful practice.
Talk about memorable.
Yeah. And,
is that legal?
Well, back in the day, who cared? I mean, it was 1987. And man, he had so many patients that come. He had every single thing in this bar. You could make any drink you want. I mean, there's like 50 bottles of stuff, wines, beers,
now that's
everything.
That's a memorable dentist. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not advocating that. I just want to say.
And he had another name. He had a name, but he only would go by Dr. Ace. He just thought that was so cool. It's kind of like Batman. He was just Dr. Ace, but that wasn't his name. And it wasn't on his card or building or anything, but he made everyone called him Dr. Ace.
Okay, Dr. Ace. Shout out to Dr. Ace.
Yeah, I wonder if he's even alive by now, but he was a character, fun character.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think this stuff is massively important.
It's massively important. So what I want to do is I want to know.
One last thing
Yeah.
to interrupt you. So your website is Cheryl Janis
JanisDesigns.com.
Designs.com. Cheryl
And
Janis Designs.com. Couple things. What do my homies find at Cheryl Janis Designs.com? And how much does it cost if they're thinking about redecorating their office, redoing their new patient experience? How much do you just do website and books and that, or do you fly to location and help pick colors? Tell us what they'd find on CherylJanisDesigns.com and what service you provide for dentists.
Thanks for asking, Howard. The first thing I want to tell you is that, Howard, I created something special for your listeners today. And that is, I created a DDS design kit. So it's very, very cool. I created it I'm introducing it here for the first time. And you just go to ddsdesignkit.com and you can put in your email and your name and you can get it instantly. And what that has, it has really cool stuff in there. One of the things it has, this is all free. It has I put together what I call a dental office design inspiration tour, where I walk you through some of the designs I've done and why I've chosen what I've done. And I show you different scenarios so that you can apply those to your own practice. So that's the first thing I have to offer. That's totally free and that's brand new.
Okay, what I want you to also do, Dental Town has 50 categories, and one of them is office design and location. So it's dental office design flaws, ergonomics, office decorating, but pick one of those. And so it doesn't look like spam. You just say, I just did a podcast with Howard today, and he wanted me to leave these for the notes for the people listening to the podcast. So they can get to work. So they can either go to @HowardFriend on Twitter, find your last tweet, find your website, or they can just go pull up their Dental Town app and go to office design and location and post that there. So it's easier to find. And then upload all your podcasts. And this is going to be a start of something really fun.
So the second thing you can do is you can go on. So I just really want everybody to do that today because I made that especially for dentists. You can also go to my website and find just a shit ton of free stuff for you. You can find, for example, my podcasts are on there. You can go there, the Wellness Design podcast. You can sign up to the Color Cure email course. And I don't want to overwhelm you. I also write daily emails with design tips. You can sign up there. So, but today I want to just direct you to ddsdesignkit.com because I really want you to take action on the tips that I give in that. And I have a lot of them in there. So I know sometimes
www.dds
designkit.com.
Turn your dental office into a nurturing, highly profitable, patient-attracting, referral-generating dynamo now. Grab this free DIY, do-it-yourself, DDS Design Kit and get started today. Nice. Thanks for making that for my homies, Cheryl.
I'm happy to do it. I'm really happy to do it. I want your homies to...
Was that Richard's idea or was that your idea?
No, that was my idea. He approved of it. That was my idea,
Did you run it by him?
I used his waiting room as an example because I redesigned his waiting room. So I asked if I could use his as an example because I talk about artwork in that. We haven't talked about artwork. And so in that, I talk about what artwork to use for your dental waiting room and what not to use and why and all that and why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. So, but what I want to talk to you about, I don't want to skip this I want to revolutionize the operatory. I'm really passionate about this. And if anyone can help me do it, you can. You can convince your homies that it's like super important to do this. So I'm going back to a question you had just a few minutes ago about, patients spend an hour and a half in the dental chair. What can be done to improve that experience and not make them freak out and want to run for the hills like they're panicked and totally afraid. One of the most important things you can do is to not, if you can, and I know this is not possible because the operatories are sometimes often small, is to not have the back of the chair facing the opening to the room so that when the person is escorted in, they sit in the chair and they have their back. Suddenly they can't use their sight. So suddenly they're Everything is behind them. All the activity is behind them. They're no longer engaged. They're no longer part of the process. And they're having to rely on their hearing and their smells. And they're hearing the drill and they're hearing people talking and they're hearing, people coming and going. And it is, there's studies on this that have been done that this type of position in offices or in operatories or anywhere, releases and increases the stress hormone cortisol. So it's such a cool and easy fix if you can do it. I really, really highly, highly encourage you to, which is to just move the operatory chair. Again, I know if it's already there and you have all your cabinets and stuff, it's not, you can't always do it. But for new dentists or for dentists that are doing a remodel, you might be able to do it. So you turn the chair, you push it into the room more so that, and some dentists that I've worked with do already have this position so that it's kind of tucked into the room and they have a view of, especially when they first get in the chair, they can see the dentist comes in, the hygienist and all the assistants have to kind of go by the chair. And so the person feels like they're more a part of what's going on and they're not just, this object with a mouth and teeth and everything in it. And so on top of that, I would love for dentists to bring in a chair right when you walk in, just a really comfortable chair. I show this in the operatory in my DDS design kit. I show an image of this so you can get a visual there of an area for a family member.
The smartest person in the world on dental operatory design is the youngest guy in my class was Brian Newworth. Brian, who graduated in 1987 and became an oral surgeon. He's out, and I think he's in South Carolina. And when I went out there, he had me lecture to a study club. And when he showed me his office, his operatories were like 3 times bigger, 4 times bigger. And he said to me, he goes, you know what I never understood, Howard? He goes, a dentist will spend 8 hours in bed a day, 8 hours in the operatory a day, and his best idea is to make this thing 10 foot by 11 foot. He's going to spend half his waking life in this room, so he decides to make it 10 foot by 11 foot. I thought, shit, if I'm going to live Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 in this room, and it was like 4. So he had a couch on one side. He had windows. I mean, he's like he lives in there. He said, if I'm going to live in here, the hell do I want to live in a shoebox for?
Right.
And I've never seen anybody who ever did that since Brian Newworth. So I think he's got to be the smartest person.
So tell your homies, Howard. Please tell your homies to do this, because it will not only reduce the patient anxiety. It will badass their business. It will take their business into the next generation, which is, people are spending more money on a better experience, period. It's being talked about. It's trending. It's not made up. This is happening.
I agree.
So that's exciting for me. And I'm really excited to share that with you. So what else can I share? What else do you want to know about?
Well, some things I just am not smart enough to ask the questions on, but like when I'm on your website, let me go down and show you some of the things I was.
Oh, you talked about how I work with my clients.
Yeah. What services do you provide? If they went to CherylJanisDesigns.com, do you do this all long distance? Do you go to site? Do you help them pick out colors?
Sure. I do all of the above. So I have a process. I have one interior design service, and I specialize in only healthcare practitioners, helping doctors and physicians with their spaces, and healthcare practitioners. I have a process. You can just go to my website and click on the design process. And I have a 2-step process. First process is called design therapy, where we meet either virtually or in person. And there's a 90-minute to 2-hour interview, and I basically elicit the genius out of you. I figure out what makes you tick, what makes you rock and roll, and I use that information for the next step, which is called a design space lift. So
that's nice. Play on facelift. You went with space lift. I love it.
Space lift. Thank you. And that's when it's an intensive process. So what I have found over the years is that doctors and healthcare practitioners and owners of these types of healthcare businesses want it now. They want it yesterday. And typical interior design processes can take, up to a year or longer. So I offer everything in a day. So after we go through the interview, I do all my work beforehand. I put together virtual rooms for you to look at. I put together, a couple of choices for you. Then we get together for a whole day. Sometimes it can be 2 days, depending on how large the facility is. I have also a service that's like, the kind of like the home run, the glam service, which is, you get professional photography, you get everything that you need. And that's like about a 4-day process. And during that time together, during that intensive, we place all orders for everything. I show you colors. I show you rooms. I show you how it looks, because I have a certain type of CAD program that's from Germany called Palette CAD that is total badassery. And it's just an immersive experience. And I love it. I paid a lot of money for it, and it's worth every penny because it sets me apart from my other interior designers, and it sets me apart because I have a way to show you what it's going to look like, to immerse you into the feeling. We get everything ordered that day, and boom, that's it. It arrives, you put it in place, you hang the artwork where it's supposed to be, you put the light fixtures where they are, you put it all together, and boom, you have your beautiful patient-centered office design. So again, that's design therapy, and which is just this, and you can get that alone. If you're just like, well, I just want to do the design therapy, you can buy that alone. And then that I will give you an outline, a brief at the end of that can show you how to move forward and what areas that you need to focus on. You might just need to focus on your waiting room. Maybe your operatories are fine. Maybe you just need, color, and we can repurpose some of your existing furniture. Maybe you need to take off the wallpaper. Maybe you need to get a new reception desk. Maybe we need to talk about, your office, or maybe your bathroom, which is an extension of your patient
I think the
experience.
most important piece of furniture is the front desk. I mean, they named
Right.
that lady's career after a piece of furniture. I mean, I'm a dentist, others are hygienists, but she's a front desk. I mean, when you're named after a desk, that should be one bitchin' hot desk.
That's right.
So
I
we need to.
agree.
I don't understand some of your terminology. You say on your website, why painting with no and low VOCs is the only choice. What is a VOC?
Volatile organic chemicals or compounds. So in the olden days, that's not really an issue anymore because the standards have become such that you can only really buy eco-friendly paint. So in other words, you buy paint that is not off-gassing, doesn't have, a lot of those toxic smells, so that you could do it over a weekend or hire somebody to do it over a weekend. And then on Monday, you could open up and it wouldn't have any of those fumes. So that's what low and no
And I
VOCs are.
remember when I was little, I was born in Kansas. My parents were hardcore Catholics, went to mass every day. They were Republican. They only voted in the election on one issue. And I remember when they were talking about taking the lead out of the gas and coming out with this unleaded stuff, and the
Uh-huh.
lead out of paint that everybody was painting their cribs with.
Right.
There was the same argument say, big government, get out of my face. You guys don't know anything you're talking about. Today use the same argument with global warming. It's a mindset. It's a mindset that everything the government says is evil.
Right.
They don't like any
Right.
change. And taking the lead out of gas and the lead out of paint, I don't think anything pissed my father off more than big government, changing the gasoline that goes in a car. And then they took lead out of the 12 gauge shotgun shells because for no reason, everybody out there shooting these 12 gauges, just polluting everything with lead. And now it looks like it's going to do the same thing to dentistry with the mercury and fillings. It's kind of that ship is going down, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you have a minute to comment on that?
Yeah, I do. I've lectured in 50 countries, and you can't do a composite unless you have a lot of equipment in that surgery to keep it dry, keep it clean. And when you see them do direct composites in Africa and Asia, where the person's rinsing in a pickle bucket and spitting in a chair, and so when the conditions are not perfect, like a missionary dental trip. You can't go out into the jungle in Mexico and be a bondodontist unless you got a high-speed suction and an assistant and a rubber dam and all that. So I always get worried when people try to make when people don't realize and think about that there's 7.5 billion Earthlings and 3.5 billion of them live off $3 a day. I mean,
Wow.
I've been to South Africa where 25% of the population is HIV positive and unemployed. That's very, very different than Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, it's just hugely different. So it's a big world. But and I do think there's some simple things they could do, like the biggest problem with silver fillings is burning coal contributes to 50% of the atmospheric mercury. Burning coal is what took the ocean from 1 part per million mercury to 4 part per million mercury from 1950 to today. But what's 6% of atmospheric mercury isn't the mercury that we're placing or removing in a dental office. It's when they're cremating humans. They put a human in the cremator and they cremate him to ashes. And those people work in crematories. But it's so this be a very simple thing to do. To have a dentist have to go extract the amalgams out of a corpse before they cremate. I mean, that's a simple thing that even California doesn't even do that today. So California,
interesting.
with all their environmental passion, they're cremating probably 1,000 bodies in California as we do this podcast that have mercury fillings in there, because the mercury in a filling is bond to silver, zinc, copper, and tin, and it's an insoluble salt. If you swallow that filling tomorrow morning, it's going to come out the other end. And you can weigh it, rinse it off, swallow it again. You can do that every day the rest of your life. Just keep passing the same old filling, and it ain't going nowhere. But the mercury in the ocean is heavy. If you throw a fork out on your swimming pool, don't float on the top, it goes to the bottom. So the mercury goes to the bottom, and then the shellfish, the shrimp, the lobster, they eat all that. And then these people who are all anti-mercury fillings are sitting there eating yogurt and shrimp cocktail, and that shrimp has absorbable methyl mercury. That you eat popcorn, you eat shrimp, that mercury will go in your bloodstream and end up in your brain. But when I put a silver filling in your mouth, that doesn't happen. And I can't tell you how many 1,000 times, and I mean 1,000 times, not 100, not a lot, I mean 1,000 times, I've been at breakfast, lunch, or dinner out there in lectures or around the world, and some hippie environmentalist dentist is telling me how evil amalgam is while they're eating shrimp and salmon and tuna. And I had a dentist at the Centers for Disease Control tell me that they are this close to putting warning labels on all canned tuna that you cannot eat this if you're pregnant, because there's so much mercury in tuna. So you can't be a dentist saying mercury amalgam is bad while you're eating a tuna fish sandwich.
I hear you.
At some point, you just got to call bullshit.
Yeah.
But anyway, they last 38 years. The white ones last 6.5 years. But at my age, I was 20. I was filled with piss and vinegar and was going to change the world. At 54, you just kind of throw your hat in and give up on your talking monkeys and just try to make the best decision you can in light of all your crazy monkey friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was cool.
And it's a tough life for me. I mean, imagine being born the only normal person on earth.
Wow.
It's really a curse. It's really a curse to be that guy. But Ryan's laughing. I don't know why he's laughing. But anyway, so I think this is amazing. But if I asked 100 dentists, I got to spin this all around on you. If
please do.
100 dentists, what keeps you up at night? It's not silver fillings. It's not bonding agents. It's you know what it is? It's their staff. Their staff drives them crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there listening to all this, wondering what would an environment do to make your staff more? What would make them more act like Buddha than act like they're all jacked up? And in fact, that's another reason. This is something I don't think I've ever even mentioned on podcast. For years and years and years and years and years, I had the office manager stop by the grocery store on the way to work and get a platter of a vegetable platter tray, some sandwiches, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because I specifically had 3 girls that I knew for a fact skip breakfast, grabbed coffee, and by 9 o'clock, they were so amped up on caffeine on an empty stomach that they started to get agitated, irritable, whatever. And I just looked at them. I said, it's like when you see a 1-year-old baby crying. I mean, it's not many problems. I mean, it's hungry,
Right.
crapped its
Right.
pants, it's sleepy. I mean, it's not a
Right.
rocket science. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? They don't eat breakfast. I'm going to make sure there's food there. And when I put it there, I'd see them take off their coat and put on whatever, and they would be grabbing it and they'd be munching it. And most of the time, it was all gone by 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I literally bought breakfast for 3 exact girls because they were happier when they weren't hungry and amped up on caffeine. And I'm wondering about all this.
Sure.
But I'm sure all this would apply. Maybe would it be measurable on making HR an easier job if everybody was
It
in a different environment?
it is measurable. There's another solution. It's one word: plants. They've done all these studies and research that show that people who work in office settings perceive their environment and their job as more satisfactory, like way more luxurious when they're around indoor plants. They've done studies that show that people get along better. So staff get along better. There's less fighting, there's less griping, there's less irritability. There's such a therapeutic quality with indoor plants, and it's underutilized. Indoor plants are underutilized. There's a lot of pushback I hear. Oh, I don't have a green thumb. Oh, I can't really hire somebody to take care of that. Oh, I don't really want to put a staff person to be responsible for that. Well, hogwash. Use plants, bring them in. They will help like nobody's business. There's science out there that proves it. And so what I recommend when it comes to plants is that you don't bring in anything spiky. So no cactuses, no spiky thorns, no aloe vera plants, because people are automatically afraid of spiky things, right? They tend to avoid them. So that would make somebody feel more on edge, not calmer. So you want to bring in. First, assess the lighting in your office. Even if you don't have windows, there still are very low light plants like the peace lily that can thrive in those places. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a long time. I know what it's like to have low light inside spaces. And I worked with a lot of facilities, healthcare facilities that did have low lighting or no windows. And so that you have your choices, simply go to your local indoor plant store, not your Home Depot, because they generally don't have the type of specialty or the information you need. Or you can hire somebody, or you can ask your cleaning people to take care of your plants. Or if your partner or beloved or husband or wife or BFF or cousin knows about plants, ask them for their help. So there's no reason to not do this. And it saves you a heck of a lot of money in the future by having to replace staff and having people get along better. It creates less drama. And what happens is when you start to apply some of these things, including evidence-based art, which is a whole other subject, evidence-based art has been shown to not just reduce anxiety, but reduce reliance on pain medication. And people get out of the hospital earlier when they're exposed to either a window with a view of a tree versus a window with a brick wall, or even nature artwork that is has specific light coming through the trees, for example, that shines onto a bench, or like immersive. Just think immersive nature photography that makes you really feel like you're there, not the crappy kind that you kind of buy at IKEA or on Amazon, and larger. Anyway, I talk about this more in the DDS design kit, so I'll take you through the process. Don't worry if you're feeling overwhelmed with a lot of information I'm throwing at you today. So,
well, you know what? Just like the lady that works up front is named after a piece of furniture, the front desk lady. I mean, staph are named after a staph infection caused by staphylococcus bacteria
wow.
types of germs. I mean,
Wow.
so I'm thinking with my staff, I'm going to start growing plants. Maybe I should just grow weed, and we could
There
sell
you
the
go.
medical marijuana, and at the end of the year, use the money for a Christmas trip. Maybe just growing the weed in the office would make them all more pleasant.
Yeah.
But
You
no,
could offer them joints. You could roll them up and then put them in a bowl if it becomes legal in your state.
I'm in all seriousness, I cannot believe I haven't heard yet of where it's legal in Colorado that some dentist isn't offering come in and eat an edible. I mean, obviously, no one's going to be smoking in a dental office, but I mean, I'm surprised someone's not offering come in 30 minutes, to someone who doesn't use marijuana recreational. Like I don't use marijuana, but if I had really high anxiety and someone said, well, come in and eat a brownie 30 minutes before your root canal or your colonoscopy, it'll take the edge off. So maybe it's not as, maybe I'm assuming it doesn't work that well.
Well,
but
I think not everybody reacts the same way. I think some people can get more paranoid when they smoke or eat a brownie or whatever. And I think that if you just use evidence-based art, you're going to trigger those opiate-rich pathways of the brain in the same way, so that when somebody comes in, they're just biologically inclined to feel high. It's a natural high they feel.
But you're right in that everybody doesn't feel the same way. I mean, the most common prescribed drug in America for 2 decades, every single year, number one, is Vicodin or hydrocodone, and that is a bizarre drug because a quarter of your patients say, "I slept for 4 days and couldn't get off the couch." Then the next quarter says, "Oh my God, I was wired. I was bouncing off the walls. I couldn't even sleep."
I get constipated when I take any of that stuff.
Some people say, this is a little
TMI,
too much information, but some people say, for men, they'll say, oh my God, it didn't work for a week. I was almost worried that it killed it. And then the next guy will say, oh my God, I had the greatest sex of my life when I was the most common drug prescribed. Some people say it was nauseous. So one person's throwing up in the toilet, and then on the other end, they want to start eating it for breakfast.
Right.
And then when you tell some people, then how many times I had a comment office by people saying, I can't believe people get addicted to this. I was itching and scratching, and it was the worst feeling in the world, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't imagine being addicted to a more horrible thing in the world. And then the next person absolutely. So yeah, everybody is different. Everybody's unique. In fact, the name unique in California is registered as a name spelled 276 different ways, according to the book Freakonomics.
Whoa, you're like a walking encyclopedia. You're amazing.
I don't believe that. I believe that people will say they have a bad memory, and then they remember every baseball statistic known to man. People say they have a bad memory if it's not something they're supposed to memorize in school, but they always remember what they're interested in. I mean, you could meet an 80-year-old lady who says she has dementia, and then she can rattle off her 12 great-grandchildren, every one of their birthdays. You know what I mean?
Right.
So people, I believe that if you dissected 100 dolphins, 100 ants, and 100 humans, we all have the exact same brain. I think the reason that this person plays violin awesome is because she was interested in it and played it 4 hours a day for 20 years. And then you've never played the violin one time, and then you say you don't have any musical talents. And I saw the same thing in math. People say, oh, I suck in math. It's like, dude, you watch 8 hours of college football on Saturday, 8 hours of NFL on Saturday. You've never done your math homework once. You skip half the classes, and then you tell me you're bad in math. And then there's other people who, when I was just going, like my best friend, Dennis, Tom Mattern, all the way back from Creighton, was a math major. And I mean, if they told you to do questions 1, 3, 5, and 8, he did every one of them. Right. I mean, for him, it was like a crossword puzzle. It was like it was a game. It was a trivia game. I mean, he couldn't do enough math. So people will always excel what they're interested in, which is tough for me, because dentists aren't humble people. Dentists, physicians, and lawyers are arrogant. Ask anybody in an airplane you sit by. Say,
really?
Yeah, well, sit by anybody on an airplane. Just say, if you had to describe a physician, a lawyer, or a dentist, what would be the first word that comes to your mind? Arrogant, conceited, thinks he's all that in a bag of chips. They never say, you know what? I'm humble.
They will after you design your space this way, because it will be giving back to the community in this way.
But the point I'm making is that the dentists are always the best at everything they're interested in. So if they're interested in business, they crush it. But 80% of them are interested in doing their hands-on surgery craft, and they're not interested. So I'm always trying to do podcasts, knowing my homies for 30 years, is saying, okay, I know this is fun and exciting, and you get to make a new type of dental procedure. I know bone grafting, you dream about it. I know that. But come over here, and then I stick their nose in accounting or SEO or HR. I mean, like when their assistant gives notice because she's quitting because her husband's moving, they don't even get around to putting an ad in until like the last day, and then they put on Craigslist. 2 people show up, and they hire one of them. Imagine if the local sports team did that. So trying to get a dentist interested that HR is more important than root canals is tough, and that's what I'm trying to do. So what I think leadership is trying to lead these homies where they need to be, not where they want to be.
Well, this is dollar and cents smart.
Yeah,
I mean, this stuff, I've seen it over the past 15 years of doing this work. I mean, regardless of whatever office you have,
we're doing a podcast, so it's we'll be listening to audio on iTunes, video on Facebook and YouTube. But this might be something that I'm Howard at Dentaltown. There's another Howard there, Howard Goldstein. So he's Hogo, Hogo at Dentaltown. But it looks like this would be a very visual communication. You might make an online CE course with Hogo one day. We've put up 417 online CE courses. They've been viewed almost 1 million times. And Richard should have told you that by now. And,
I'll let him know.
It's such a visual. Just like we did a podcast. Some podcasts are just not made for sound. And this, I was thinking, if there ever was to be a visual presentation,
this is important.
And one last thing, I can't believe we went over an hour. I'm not really an artsy-fartsy type guy. I live in a bachelor pad with 3 of my 4 sons. The oldest one's married and leaves, so we're not very artsy or any of that stuff. But when I lectured in Paris last year, I took 3 of my boys, and we went to what was it? The Louvre, the Louvre, the big art museum there. The Louvre?
The Louvre,
where the Mona Lisa is.
Yeah.
And, it's a tourist trap. We thought we'd do that. We were speechless for 2 days. I mean, these paintings were like 10 meters by 10 meters, a walk through history, the detail. I mean, we'd stand there and look at some of these paintings for 5-10 minutes and just little weird stuff like this big painting here of a scene, but there's like a little elf monster thing hiding behind a tree. And I mean, and there might be 3 birds, but one of them had a human face. I mean, I think it was the single best art collection I've ever seen anywhere in the world. I mean, it was just literally mind-blowing. It was so mind-blowing, it's worth a trip to France. If you're a dentist, you got to go see the Pierre Fauchard Museum. I mean, he was the first dentist in the world, 1800s. That's amazing. But if you're a dentist, you should go to Paris and see the Pierre Fauchard Museum and then go see the Mona Lisa. And the Mona Lisa is actually the most boring part of the whole museum. I mean, it's just a little 2 foot by 2 foot
it is fascinating
picture. Man, most of those pictures are 10 meters by 10 meters. I mean, that's amazing. But hey, I had so much fun.
So did I. Thank you.
And email me and CC Richard Janis. And if you can dig up your first kiss, that would be hilarious. I bet he would laugh for a month if that was on there. That has got to be hilarious. And
it is.
But hey, thanks for all you do for dentistry, Dentaltown.
Thanks, Howard. It's a pleasure.
The new patient experience. I'll tell you. This is my final thought on it. The dentist is addicted to a drug called new patients, and all he wants is new patients. And by the time the average dentist gets to 5,000 new patients, 4,000 of them never came back, and he never wants to figure out why they didn't come back because of his hours or didn't have nitrous or wasn't pleasant or had toxic staff or the new patient experience, colors, smells, everything. He never wants to fix why 80% of his patients never came back. He just wants more new patients. And like if you had a drug addict, the first thing you do is you take their drug away. And I almost wish, I think the best thing that could happen to a dentist is you took away their advertising and marketing and said, okay, we're not giving you any new ones. Now go in there and make Grandma Mary want to come back. Don't be rushing off, working on 3 chairs at once, leaving her alone in a room for 30 minutes. I mean, the number one skill they could have is the new patient experience and the chairside bedside manner. And if you could crush that new patient experience, and she walked in and felt like she was at home meeting your receptionist. And then when the doctor walked in the room, he has 2 ears and 1 mouth, and he listened twice as much as he spoke and really made her feel at home, she'd stay there.
And it makes their work easier, right? Because your environment is making your life easier. And so you don't have to work as hard because your environment is like your ally. And it's, it's like your assistant. It's creating an experience that they're already doing the work before you even see the patient.
And, and back to visual, it'd be a great article in Dental Town if it had a lot of pictures in it, visual display.
I'd love to write an article for Dental Town. My brother did tell me about that.
Well, we would we'd cross out your name and put Richard, because, he's a dentist and all. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, tell Richard I said hello.
He'd love that. I will.
Okay.
Thanks, Howard.
Have a
great
day.